and we have a video, Leo, that is happening. So as you guys can see, we have a scenario that is happening in a public area in an airport, Orly airport in Paris. As you see, this guy comes from the back to this person with a gun to the head from the back with a kind of a headlock. So let's see what we could do in those kind of scenario. So first of all, guys, it's important to mention that any gun threat, if it's from the front or especially from the back, you're not jumping on the gun. We're not in a Hollywood movie here. If you're not feeling an immediate life danger, okay? So someone is coming from the back and putting you a gun, or from the front. Sometimes they actually want something out of you. He wants your money. In our scenario, the guy was using the woman. Maybe he was planning on taking her as a hostage. We don't really know the story behind it. But here we are going to show you a technique that can be effective if you feel an immediate life danger, okay? So Leo, you're from the back, you're the attacker. As you guys were able to see, we have simply a person walking in a public space, and suddenly there is an attacker coming from the back, jumping on him with a gun threat from the back. We have this hand that is kind of half headlock, is not choking, is just here to hold. Okay, let's do it one time quick and then break it down. No, please, 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 please. He's dragging her backwards first. No, please. Oh. On the ground. Okay, you're taking control of the situation, of course, in the end. But let's see one more time what was happening here. So in our scenario, this person was held from the back and was a gun pointed on his head right away. We're gonna teach you a technique that can definitely work if you're in immediate danger. But as we said, this is not easy under pressure to perform it. But if you're someone trained and you feel in immediate danger, that could definitely save your life in this kind of scenario. So first thing what you want to do is simply put your hands up and ask the attacker to calm down, right? Second, pay attention what I do. Leo, is the gun loaded? Yes. From here, Leo, whenever you see me resisting, okay, that means I'm trying to take your gun, I'm trying to hit you, something like this, I want you to shoot. Are you ready? Don't give me any discounts. There you go. Got one more shot. So you were pretty close, but you definitely shot me here. And remember, you're pretty ready because you know I'm going to react. Opa, there you go. So from here, the first thing I want to do is just redirect the gun. As weird as it sounds, you don't need to grab the gun here. We have different techniques that I see online, and I see all kind of people are doing, reacting just with one hand, trying kind of to take the gun. But trying to grab the barrel, you have a small surface here. Trying to go and, with your thumb, grab the barrel, redirect the barrel, then twist in order to disarm. It could work, but you have to be so precise. What I want you guys to do here is, instead of grabbing the barrel, this small surface, just to simply redirect. This is your first move. The second move is right away, the other hand is going towards the back of the gun. Okay, from here, Leo, if you're pulling the gun, try to pull the gun. I'm here. I have an advantage here that I'm holding on to the back of the gun. And from here, boom, I can easily create leverage. Leo, hold the gun tight. Not going to help. And then I'm going to my own attacks. Important to mention, there are different techniques that I can use from here. Another one that will be useful is from here, going with the hand that is actually far from the gun. Why? Here, this hand doesn't have always the range other than what we showed you. But if you want to redirect the barrel towards backward and not towards forward as we showed you, what you're going to be doing is turn towards him and boom, redirect the barrel towards the attacker. And from here you can go to attacks, right? And turn to him, grab the back of the gun. That's important. Why? Because he wants the gun back. He's pulling the gun. So we showed you two different techniques. They're both good, and they're going to be suiting scenarios that are a little bit different. They're both from the back. Okay, so the first one that we showed you is lifting your hands, going one hand up, simply redirecting. Leo, you're ready to shoot? Whoa, man, leave me alone. As you can see, you're always shooting outside of my head. From here, after I redirect, boom, I go with the other hand right away to the back of the gun. And from here, I'm twisting. Look at this twist. The left hand is helping me from the back of the gun and the right is twisting the barrel. The hips are going back, okay? This way, I'm in control of the gun and I can even attack with my gun. Boom. Side kick, then you're taking control of the situation. Important to mention, you want here a magazine strike in order to make sure you're able to load the gun. And when you're loading the gun, you're sure that you have a bullet in the barrel and you're really in control. Second technique we showed you today is also that you can go with the hand that is far from the gun. This is in case you already turned to him and you can have a kind of a half turn, and then you can go point the barrel towards the attacker. Now from here you can attack, but what's important is you continue to turn. You continue to turn and you grab the second part of the gun, the back of the gun, and then you continue it like from the front. I personally prefer the first one because it's always going to work no matter what. Right? If you're also turning, you could do the same. But you guys can go and practice both of them and see what you feel comfortable with. Leo, that's yours. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next episode. Thank you guys for joining our Krav Maga class. You guys can stay tuned and check out our Facebook and YouTube page and learn more Krav Maga tips and lessons. Thank you. Welcome back to the show analyzing real-life attacks caught on tape. Today we have a scenario many of you are familiar with. Leo? So, as you guys can see, we have a knife attack that happened in Jerusalem in the time period when Israel was under a lot of terrorist knife attacks. So we have here a person that is being probably investigated, being asked for his paper on the fence. There are soldiers around him, and as you can see, he's showing like he's getting out something out of his pocket, and then he's stabbing right away the soldier into his head. Of course, all the other soldiers are coming to his help and shooting him, and they neutralize the terrorist pretty quick. But I want to talk about the guy, the soldier who was actually being stabbed, and see what we can learn, what kind of self-defense lesson we can learn out of it. So we have a scenario when one person, the attacker, is sitting on a fence and the soldier is probably asking some questions to our attacker. From here, again, we're going to talk about the concept of distance. If you're talking to someone suspicious, even if he is sitting, better to be in a range that he does not reach you by just standing up. If you're here, right, if you're here and you're just sitting, even from here, if you have a knife, boom, you can stab it to the stomach that easily without my ability to actually react. If you're taking a step back, okay, if you're sending your hands here to my stomach, you're not necessarily reaching me, okay? You will have to stand up, boom. So in our scenario, the guy did stood up and he was attacking him with a knife, boom, to the head. As a soldier, they always have the instinct of trying to reach the weapon. But in our scenario, you can see the soldier that was not able to reach the weapon. We don't really know what's happening inside the soldier's head, and we're not judging him, of course. But in a scenario that you're being attacked and you don't have time to use your weapon or to use your pepper spray or to use a chair, a knife, any object to your advantage, better always to react with your body, because that's what's always available to you. So other than talking about distance that we're always mentioning, because if you have a distance and the guy is doing something suspicious, boom, I can definitely use my leg and send him back to sit and take control of the situation. But if the guy is already standing up on you and the knife is coming, right? And I'm pretty sure that the soldier itself was able to understand that he's being attacked before he was stabbed. A moment before, but he was trying to reach his weapon and then got stabbed by the head. So when you're being attacked and you're being surprised and you don't have time to go and grab your weapon or grab a common object to use to your advantage, definitely use your hand, boom. And when you're using your hand, you're first of all taking off the element of surprise from your attacker, and you're in another position already. Boom and boom, this is our normal defense against a knife threat. After that, of course, all the other soldiers would help him. So today, guys, just our little tip to you is trust your instincts before everything. When you're falling on the street, you're using your hands to stop your head from hitting the ground. So when there is a danger coming at you, use your hands, okay? Use your instincts, trust your body. After that, you could do many stuff as reacting with an attack. Okay, don't forget that this hand is not always enough because the attacker can always go down. But it is the first reaction you're going to have, and from there, you're gonna have to do all kinds of other stuff, as maybe, boom, controlling the knife, or maybe if the attack goes down, to do an attack that will cover lower, or maybe if you have a distance, boom, after the first one, use a push kick, and then grab some distance and take control of the situation. But most important, trust your instincts, because that's sometimes the only thing you got. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks, Leo. Thank you guys for joining our Krav Maga class. You guys can stay tuned and check out our Facebook and YouTube page and learn more Krav Maga tips and lessons. Thank you. So guys, the first episode we were talking this week happened in the stairs. You were able to see a guy that is being attacked with a knife, with this leveraging hand that was catching his shirt or his neck. We talked about how you can position yourself on the stairs, how you should use your hands to protect yourself, be in a fighting stance, the distance, all of that we talked about the first episode. The second episode we had another time a scenario happened in a staircase, a guy going down the stairs and then attacking a man and a woman. He was attacking actually the man by pushing him. We talked again and again about distance, using your hand to create distance, and how to defend against a push. Okay? The third episode happened in an airport in Paris, France, Orly airport, when a person was grabbed from the back with a gun threat from the back to the head. We talked about that you're not gonna jump on guns immediately if you don't feel in an immediate life risk. And we talked about two different techniques that can work from a gun threat from the back. The fourth scenario we had happened in Jerusalem, a scenario that many of us know, when a soldier was attacked by a terrorist with a knife. The terrorist simply was sitting on a fence, then standing up, stabbing the soldier to the head. We talked again about the concept of distance and how to use your hands and how to trust your instinct, most importantly, instead of trying to get to your weapon or to your common object. Sometimes your instinct is the best thing for you because they're always available for you. Thank you guys for joining our Krav Maga class. You guys can stay tuned and check out our Facebook and YouTube page and learn more Krav Maga tips and lessons. Thank you.
Welcome back to ILTV on the Hour. I'm Caleb Ben David, coming to you live from Israel, bringing you all of the biggest headlines from across the region. It's currently 8 a.m. in New York City and 2 p.m. here in Israel, where we are entering day 19 of the war with Iran. Let's cap all of the latest developments. Well, it was a challenging night for the home front, as Iran and Hezbollah launched multiple waves of missiles at Israel. And there were fatalities. A couple in their 70s, Yaron and Ilana Moshe, were killed in an Iranian strike on the Tel Aviv suburb of Ramat Gan after a barrage that included missiles armed with cluster warheads. The two were found in their apartment and are believed not to have reached a protected space in time. Medics pronounced them dead at the scene. 4 others were lightly injured in separate impacts, including in the city of Bnei Brak and Kfar Qasim. Shrapnel also caused damage to one of Tel Aviv's main train stations, temporarily halting rail service. And the sirens continued overnight in central and southern Israel, with additional missiles intercepted. No further casualties reported. Overnight, Hezbollah also launched over 40 rockets and drones at northern Israel from Lebanon, with most intercepted or falling in open areas. One home in Carmel was damaged by a rocket. No injuries reported. Our reporter, Devo Klein, is at the scene of that strike in Ramat Gan. Devo?
Hi, Kalev. I am at the scene of one of the impact sites of last night's multiple barrages of ballistic missiles that made their way over from Iran over to Israel. We had about between 3 and 4 sirens in central Israel, depending on where you are, scattered throughout the night. So not a lot of sleep given. But just behind me, on the top floor of this apartment complex, one of the fragments of these cluster munition bombs that are being sent over from Iran hit the top floor of this apartment building. It crashed through the porch, and unfortunately, the explosion took the lives of 2 elderly people in their 70s. Reports are now claiming that they were on their way to their bomb shelter and they just didn't make it in time. And now their lives have been taken. Unfortunately, may their memories be a blessing. This is the first time that we're seeing casualties from these ballistic missile barrages since the tragic incident in Beit Shemesh that took the lives of 9 people. This is the first time that we're seeing casualties since that event. Just behind me right now, there are cranes trying to remove the rubble and the carnage. I was actually here earlier in the morning where a chunk of the porch that had not really fallen off yet, it was kind of still hanging on from last night, it crashed down on one of these workers behind me. So we now have police presence and soldiers from the Home Front Command just being around and urging people to stay safe and to take the necessary precautions, because this scene as of right now is a safety hazard. And as you can see behind me, the Israeli and American flags. Honestly, American flags, Kalev, draped around the city in every corner, in every intersection, just reminding people to stay strong, that we are in this together to inspire unity and to remind people to listen to the Home Front Command guidelines, because they do save lives. So this is the carnage behind me from the scenes of one of the impacts last night in central Israel. Back to you, Kalev.
Thank you, Devo, and a real tragedy there. And joining us for more on this is Dr. Yaakov Seligman. He is a volunteer physician and ambulance driver for the United Hatzalah Emergency Medical Services Organization. Dr. Seligman, I understand you were at the scene there overnight there in Ramat Gan. First of all, just tell us about your experience, what you saw there.
Yes, that's correct. I was at a couple of the scenes last night in the multiple barrages. I was in Petah Tikva and a couple of different areas, as well as Bnei Brak, as well as the scene in Ramat Gan. It's just destruction. I think it's also important to note that these cluster warheads, they're not little pieces of shrapnel flying, but they're specifically made to explode in the air, and then multiple dozens actually of little bomblets, they call them, of little missiles each fall apart, so that it's much, much harder for us to counter them, and so that they can inflict maximum damage on civilian casualties. One of these little bomblets, just one of them, fell through this poor couple's apartment while they were on their way to their shelter. And it unfortunately took both of their lives. There was destruction everywhere, cars on fire. The apartment there was destroyed. Another building in Petah Tikva, the entire building had to be completely evacuated. Cars were burned. I'd say at least a dozen or 15 cars that I saw in the parking lot were completely destroyed by just one of these bomblets. And each of these ballistic missiles that they send over at night, not only to wake us up and harass us, but they send out dozens of these little bomblets, each having the potential to kill dozens of people.
Right. And Dr. Seligman, unfortunately, this was an older couple. Apparently, were not able to make their way into a shelter in time. It's a problem when you live, for example, in a tall building, as I understand this was, and maybe the shelter wasn't, they didn't have a protected room. I don't know the exact circumstances. How are you seeing as you go around the country and going to these scenes? We're now in our third week of war. Is the Israeli public remaining really with the necessary edge to make sure they respond promptly to these kind of alerts?
So thank God most people, by and large, are staying steadfast and strong and listening to the home front command's instructions, getting to safe places as fast as possible. Just like this couple, there have been unfortunate accidents where that 17-year-old girl was hit a few days ago on her way to a shelter as well. But the Israeli government is trying to provide as much as they can shelters. And like you said, there's some tall buildings, older buildings that don't have shelters. Like my house, for example, we have to run in the middle of the night every time with our children to the community shelter down the street. It's not fun, but the Israeli public is strong and we're behind our government. And we do know that whatever needs to be done, we're with them. And it's for the long term, for the peace in the future.
All right. Let's hope it continues that way. Dr. Yaakov Seligman of United Hezbollah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And meanwhile, the U.S. and Israel continue to hit Iran with ongoing and devastating airstrikes. Defense Minister Israel Katz has confirmed that Iranian intelligence minister Esmail Khatib was targeted and killed by an IDF airstrike overnight. Media reports also claim a projectile struck near the Bushehr nuclear power plant. Excuse me. The IDF says it has expanded its strikes on besieged targets across Tehran, hitting multiple command sites linked to the Iranian regime. Now, the strikes follow the attack that killed Basij commander Gholam Reza Soleimani and other senior Basij officials. Now, Israeli officials have also now confirmed that Morteza Larijani, the son and deputy of Ali Larijani, was also killed in that strike that eliminated his father. Over the past 24 hours, the Army says more than 10 military positions were struck in Iran, including command centers embedded in civilian areas and checkpoints across the capital. The IDF says these operations are part of a broader campaign to weaken Iran's military and internal security networks. Turning now to the northern front, the IDF says it struck Hezbollah operatives, rocket launchers, and logistic facilities across Lebanon today, after warning that the group is likely still planning more major rocket barrages on Israel. The IDF says it is pushing deeper into southern Lebanon, establishing a buffer zone as Hezbollah continues its rocket and drone attacks on northern Israel. Troops from the 36th Division have launched additional targeted ground operations, joining the 91st and 146th Divisions already deployed in the area. The military says heavy airstrikes and artillery fire have preceded the advance, targeting Hezbollah positions across the south, also in Beirut's Dakhia stronghold. The IDF says it carried out a new wave of airstrikes on Hezbollah infrastructure after it issuing an evacuation warning for the coastal city of Tyre. Israel has again urged civilians to evacuate those areas south of the Zahrani River, as Lebanese authorities report more than 1 million people are displaced. Now, the IDF says these operations are aimed at pushing Hezbollah away from the border and reducing the threat to Israeli communities in the north. Defense Minister Katz said hundreds of thousands of Lebanese civilians will not return south of the Litani River until northern Israeli residents are safe. And U.S. President Donald Trump has acknowledged and praised Israel's killing of top Iranian official Ali Larijani, along with the head of the Basij force, Soleimani. Referring to the IDF strike killing Larijani, Trump said, "A lot of people say their actual top leader was killed yesterday, along with someone responsible for the death of 32,000 protesters." When asked about his next steps in Iran, he said the U.S. is not yet ready to leave, but will do so in the very near future. And he insisted that if the war ends, it will take Iran 10 years to rebuild. Trump also criticized NATO and praised Middle East allies for their help in securing the Strait of Hormuz, calling NATO's refusal a very foolish mistake. Let's listen to President Trump.
But we've had great support from the Middle East. Qatar has been great. Saudi Arabia has been terrific. Bahrain has been very good. The Middle Eastern countries have been very strong in their support. And of course, Israel has been our partner. Israel's been very, very strong. But we're not ready to leave yet. But we'll be leaving in the near future. We'll be leaving in pretty much the very near future. But right now, they've been decimated from every standpoint. And again, we've had great support from countries in the Middle East, great support, but we've had no support from, essentially, no support from NATO.
Okay. But in the first serious signs of dissension in the Trump administration, the U.S. National Counterterrorism Center Director Joe Kent announced his resignation over U.S. military strikes on Iran. Kent said in a post that social media platform X that he, quote, cannot in good conscience support the ongoing war in Iran. Iran posed no imminent threat to a nation, and it's clear that we started this war due to pressure from Israel and its powerful American lobby. Now, Kent is the highest level official to resign his position over President Trump's decision to launch the war with Iran. In his letter, Kent said that early in the administration, quote, high-ranking Israeli officials and influential members of the American media deployed a misinformation campaign that wholly undermined your America First platform and sowed pro-war sentiments to encourage a war with Iran. However, Kent's appointment as National Counterterrorism Director 8 months ago was opposed by Democrats who cited his previous ties to white supremacist, anti-Semitic, and neo-Nazi activists. Administration officials are also saying that Kent, a military veteran, had been frozen out of top security briefings for the past several months over concerns that he was leaking sensitive material. Well, joining us for more on all these stories, we have with us Dr. Eyal Pinko. He is a intelligence, security, and cyber expert here in Israel. We also have joining us from Bahrain, Ahmed Kuzai, a political consultant and analyst. Thank you for joining us, gentlemen. A lot to talk about. But first, Dr. Pinko, let me just start with you. Israel taking out another senior figure in the Iranian hierarchy, the intelligence minister, Ismail Khatib. I want you to maybe just talk about the impact of that, but more broadly, this wave, the potential impact of these wave of eliminations that we've seen just over the past couple of days.
Yeah, speaking about elimination, so it was also yesterday or a day and a half ago, the elimination of the head of the national security and many other Basij senior officers, as you mentioned. If I may also say that 2 hours ago, Israel also attacked oil and gas infrastructure in Iran, which is much further escalation because until now, Trump wanted to preserve this kind of infrastructure in order not to play with the oil prices that will not high rocket as they already are. And today, combining with the elimination of the senior people with the oil infrastructure, this is a really a major escalation in the attacks. They are major escalation because now they are really hit the symbol of the regime. The symbol of the regime, the senior officers, and one of the most critical assets that they have, what generate money, which is the oil. So it's a huge escalation under consent from Trump, and I think it's a huge milestone in the war.
All right. Well, Ahmed, of course, you could also comment on some of the points Dr. Pinko just made, which are quite interesting, attacking, for example, the oil facilities. But I do want to ask you, we haven't about the situation in Bahrain. You know, you heard earlier perhaps a report on the difficulties. For example, we had overnight here in Israel. Bahrain has been you are on the very front line of this conflict with Iran, and you have been targeted with Iran. Maybe also just talk about just how it's also been the last few days there.
Of course, it's not my place to comment on what the doctor just mentioned. He knows better than I do. Although, to answer your question and to follow up on what he said, we could see a pretty good decline in the number of attacks by Iran and the number of missiles and drones. That's contributed to the elimination of at least a number of 25 to 35 assassinations of high-ranked Iranians over the past few days, as well as Iran been using their artillery heavily lately. 95% decline. This is a big thing for a country that's fighting a war of that size. Now, in Bahrain and the Gulf as well, you just mentioned, we are at the front lines, although we are being on the defense lately. For the past 2 weeks, we are approaching the third week within 3 days. We've been on the response side. We haven't attacked Iran yet. We have a pretty good strategy. We spoke about it on our last interview last week here on the channel with you. Yet, what I have to highly mention here is the speech that you just broadcasted by President Trump thanking Israel and the Gulf states. This just shows how these treaties, how this agreement between stance and the defense strategies that we've been handling lately, it is draining Iran out. This is the main word I'm gonna say. Between eliminating their leaders, between having a cardboard Ayatollah, between how the attacks are being managed by Israel and the United States, and how we are receiving it here in the Gulf, I think this is a pretty good strategy to drain them out overall.
Right. Maybe Dr. Pinko pick up on that. Because if, as you said, if, for example, President Trump now attacking the infrastructure of Iran, we should also mention reports of increased military activity around the Strait of Hormuz, airstrikes there to try to deplete Iranian capabilities, block that waterway. We may be seeing the groundwork for a kind of post-war strategy or position, as President Trump maybe is thinking about drawing down the more kinetic aspects of the conflict and looking at how he can create an arrangement that will continue to press the regime if it is still weakened but still standing at the end of this phase of the conflict.
Yeah. If we can map Trump and Israel moves, strategy, if I can call it strategy, we can see that at the beginning, aerial superiority was achieved. After that, taking down the missile launching capabilities. And Ahmed here, my friend, with Bahrain and all the other countries over there, they suffered 8 times more than Israel missile attacks. It's much more than Israel, and I believe they have less aerial defense capabilities, if I assess correctly. And they're showing good resilience towards the Iranian attack. So this is the second part. The third part is against the regime symbols. Once again, the top leaders, including Khamenei, and this is the third. And the fourth one is the energy capabilities, which is the last piece in the puzzle, how to dismantle or enable the people of Iran to go over against the regime. And I think that these are the fourth dimension. One important thing regarding that is bombarding and hitting the Kharaj Island, which sits on the opening of the straits. And this is very important because from one hand, this is the hub for many oil pipeline and the oil infrastructure, but most of it, this is a very important base, very important one, of the Iranian Revolution Navy, which from this Kharaj Island, they are controlling the exit from the Straits of Hormuz. So hitting over there, the Navy will enable the American Navy to go inside and to be much more closer to the Straits. in order to see that the maritime commerce goes in and out. So basically, these are the 5 elements. And I think, once again, 4 of them were dealt before. Today, we see additional steps. We are going very well towards the strategy. We don't know when Trump will stop. One day he say 2-3 days, another day he say 3-4 weeks. I don't know if he's mixing the Iranian like that, or doing some psychological effect against the Iranians, or against us, or with us. But we still are confused regarding the timeline.
Dr. Pickaway, I certainly won't force you to make a prediction based on what President Trump may or may not be saying at any particular time. But Ahmed, I want to go back to you when you discussed and you mentioned President Trump here, as you said, specifically thanking countries like Bahrain, the UAE, which has joined the Abraham Accords, Saudi Arabia. But what about countries? Those countries already had a certain position vis-a-vis Iran, certainly Bahrain, the UAE and Saudi Arabia vis-a-vis, and maybe Saudi Arabia or more quietly vis-a-vis Israel. But what about those countries in the Gulf like Qatar, Oman, Kuwait, that for different reasons perhaps sought to, however you want to say, accommodate Iran, or some might say, certainly in some cases, enable Iran. Now it's been weeks that they've had to deal with their attack. Do you see a fundamental shift in those countries, bringing them closer to where, for example, Bahrain and the UAE now stand, and Saudi Arabia may be clearly heading?
Certainly. Now, I'm not going to be very optimistic about joining the Abraham Accords immediately, but let's put it that way. Today, it's a black and white kind of situation for the Gulf states. There are countries that attack you with rockets, and there are countries who are not. Once we put it this way, that puts Iran at the top of the chart of who's your enemy. Once we put it there, we have to look on the other side, who's not your enemy, who's not bombarding you, who's not attacking you. Once we put it in this clear version, we will know exactly where everybody is standing. Yes, I understand people have reservations with Israel. People have reservations when it comes to the Palestinian issue. But today we're talking about the sovereignty of every state of the Gulf states. And that is a sovereign question that has no other answers but to answer it with a black and white kind of situation. That's number one. If I may add, and I'm no military strategist here, but I mean, taking it from a political or from, let's say, logical point of view, now that the energy resources of Iran are being attacked, I think that's exactly what they're going to retaliate with, attacking the energy sources in the Gulf. And here we're talking about oil. They've been trying to do it over the past few weeks, but I think they will even do it heavily over the next few days. They tried to attack the financial institutions, linking them to the United States and, as per them, even to Israel, and they did not succeed. So let's see how it plays out over the next few weeks or the next few days. We're not
Well,
sure.
That begs a question, Ahmed, because you heard President Trump specifically criticize European countries, NATO allies, for not, for example, sending warships to the Strait of Hormuz or additional forces. How well protected or not are those facilities in places like Bahrain, the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia? How vulnerable are they to perhaps a stepped up Iranian attacks if we see that in the coming days?
As I mentioned, I'm not a military person. I wouldn't know that. But from what I can see is that we are fairly protected for two main reasons. We mentioned that the number of attacks are declining up to 95%, and that's assuring up to a big level. On the other hand, as well, the strategy of the Gulf. Yes, we have never, as Gulf states, been through this situation before. So we saw a big change as citizens here after the first week. We can see how our military forces started adapting to it, understanding the patterns, understanding how to deal with it. And from there, we saw a big change in how we're dealing with it and even the number of sirens. So I would say we are fairly protected.
All right. Ayal, I want to turn a little to the northern front and Hezbollah. I think a lot of people are now actually starting to wonder if the war with Iran, this stage of it ends because basically President Trump decides it's this time of the to end that operation. Where does that leave Israel with Hezbollah? What is our goal now with Hezbollah? Are we facing the possibility that the conflict with Hezbollah would continue even after perhaps this stage of the war with Iran will end?
I think as a short answer, the potential of gaining or moving to another escalation with Hezbollah is absolutely open. It's more than that. There are some rumors, which I don't know if it's our fact or not, but a lot of sayings that Radwan force is already accumulated several thousands of operatives in the borders in the southern part of Lebanon. And we see from the attacks a few days ago against Israeli soldiers and in general so we see that they are fighting, they are trying to fight. The Lebanese military really at the end of the day, putting things on the table, has no power to stop it. Once part of the Lebanese military personnel are Hezbollah as well. So Hezbollah is very well mixed in the Lebanese military. Secondly, they are really afraid personally of doing things against Hezbollah that it may turn against them as well. And the Lebanese government is very weak. They have some backup from the French government, the German government, but at the end of the day, they are very weak. They cannot impose anything on Hezbollah. Hezbollah is willing to protect its position in Lebanon. Nevertheless, what will happen with Iran? Hezbollah has also its own ambitions, political ambitions. Hezbollah leader thinks they own the land in Lebanon. So I believe even though Iran will collapse, as we say, inshallah, or I hope it will be, still Hezbollah is over there. And we cannot forget also the Houthis that are, still waiting where to go inside the war. So we are still, we still need to deal at some moment with Iranian proxies, Houthis and Hezbollah. And I think it's a matter of time when the Houthis will start operating. Nevertheless, and in the summary, we see political local ambitions for Hezbollah of the Houthis, not only by Iranian. And we, at some moment, I believe there will be some escalation or more escalation against them.
All right. Well, since you mentioned the Houthis, Ahmed, I mean, we've been much more focused in terms of Iranian proxies on Hezbollah, to some degree on those Shiite militias in Iraq, kind of put aside, I won't say forgotten, but put aside, for example, the threat posed by the Houthis. But we should also note Iran has Shiite proxies in other countries as well. And we've seen in Bahrain, for example, however you want to describe them, certainly anti-government activists or agents of Iran at work. How does how has the progress of the war and where it might end impact on their influence in the Gulf region? Those proxies, be it a whole country like Yemen or elements within a country like in Bahrain, where does this war leave them or potentially leave them?
Well, to start with, just like you mentioned, with the proxies here, we're talking about two sets of proxies. The first set is the likes of Hezbollah and Houthis and Hashabi in Iraq. The second set is what are known as the sleeper cells. They are only active when are ordered by Iran to do so. We've seen them in Qatar, Bahrain, and Kuwait, not as big and not as active and not as violent as the ones in Lebanon and Iraq and with the Houthis in Yemen. The difference is they are not as heavily militarized. They're not as much as organized, but they are more like sleeper cells. The cell that was captured yesterday in Kuwait are an offshoot of Hezbollah, and Hezbollah since the 80s have been operating in Kuwait, trying to stage some basically assassinations against the emir, some kidnapping, some killings, and now they're back on track. And just to follow up on the previous conversation with the doctor here, is that they picked the wrong time, because today they're not just going against Israel and Lebanon, but now they're facing as well the Gulf states who are backing heavily the Lebanese government. And just yesterday, Hezbollah announced that they are going against the state in Lebanon. So that makes them pick the wrong time for picking a fight. It's one of the worst times ever for them. That on one hand. Back to your question, when we're talking about the Houthis, they may enter anytime, just like it was commented right now. But when it comes to the sleeper cells, on the first week, they were heavily active in the Gulf and in the Arab world. But over the second week, they felt what Iran is going through, and now we see them taking a defense stance. So instead of them attacking and threatening, here I'm talking about even personally, threatening personal people, threatening with killings and other stuff, now they stopped. And now they are on the defense stance, asking people not to attack them. They are misunderstood. They stand with their countries. So that tells everything we want to know about how they feel, where the war is going, and how Iran is handling everything, which from being the on the aggressive side, now being on the defense side. And that tells us everything we need to know about how this war is going.
Right. Of course, though, a wounded animal can sometimes be the most dangerous kind of animal, as they say. Dr. Ayal Pinko and our friend there in Bahrain, we wish you all the best and stay safe. Ahmed Hussein, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And let's continue our discussion. Let's bring in now Jonathan Al-Khouri. He is a Mideast expert, specializing especially on Israeli-Lebanese affairs. And we also have from the U.S. Hussein Abdul Hussein, a senior research fellow at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. And Jonathan, I'm going to start just with you, because after the kind of night we had with Hezbollah, firing upwards of 40 missiles and drones, we have to say, fortunately, Israel's defense systems were quite effective. But we're seeing this morning, and perhaps you heard early in the broadcast, expanded military activity in Lebanon, now centered around Tyre and other areas. Where does that leave Hezbollah? A question I raised for a previous guest is, are we facing an extended conflict with Hezbollah that may extend even beyond the current war with Iran, because that is going to be decided by President Trump, whereas the war with Hezbollah is going to have to be decided certainly here in Israel?
Yeah, as it seems, as you mentioned, the war in Iran is been dictated and led by President Trump in the U.S. At the end of the day, the Hezbollah front is much more closer to Israel, and the U.S. also gave the full support to Israel to continue on its operation against Hezbollah. Unlike, for example, in 2024, where the U.S. Basically pushed Israel towards this ceasefire that we saw that at the end of the day, the Lebanese government wasn't able to seize all of Hezbollah's weapons southern than the Litani River and in general all across of the Lebanese territories. That's why it led this time to the Lebanese government to take more measurements or more affirmative actions against Hezbollah, starting from announcing it as an illegal to the Lebanese law, and also goes against Lebanese sovereignty. At the end of the day, Hezbollah knows that with the fall, hopefully soon, of the Islamic Republic, their days will be very much shorter, because at the end of the day, their main funder, their main supporter, their main equipments that are sent to them are from the Islamic Republic of Iran. They have been their almost solely beneficiary since 1982, when they created Hezbollah to act as their proxy in Lebanon, taking the Lebanese people as hostages throughout the last 40 plus years, at the end of the day, just to act on behalf of the Islamic Republic and wage war against Israel. But this time we've seen a lot of different voices coming out of Lebanon, not just from the Christians and Sunni Muslim and Druze community, but also from within the Shia community. There's a huge change in the voices against Hezbollah that basically you can say that fear that was held upon the Lebanese public throughout the 40 plus years have been finally beginning to shatter up on our eyes. And at the end of the day, I think that, as expected, the Lebanese government needs to take more measurements in order to conceal the ways that Hezbollah is able to control Lebanese territories.
Right, and to bring that those points back to Iran, Hussein, let me ask you, if you've heard the news, Israel, at least Israel Defense Minister Israel Katz confirming the elimination of the head of military intelligence in Iran, Ismail Khatib, earlier today. How much does something like that impact on Iran's ability to direct and influence its proxies, be they those like Hezbollah who are taking active part in the war, and Israel is also degrading their ability, but also others that, like the Houthis or the Shiite militias in Iraq who have been, I think the expression has been sitting on their powder, so to speak, waiting to see just how this war will turn before they act.
So it seems that of all the proxies, Hezbollah is the most independent and the most powerful. The Houthis, even though they're allied with Iran and they got a lot of support over the years from Iran, they're not proteges of Iran. They're allies, and now they are probably hedging, and they think that if they sit this war out, then if the regime does not survive, they have a chance of staying in power. Maybe they have a chance of being recognized by Saudi Arabia and the rest of the world. So the Houthis seem to be trying to keep themselves out of this fight. Hezbollah, as we saw, was the earliest to jump in. And as we said, regardless of what happens in Iran, this war will go on. Even if the war in Iran stops, the war between Israel and Hezbollah will go on until something happens, until the Lebanese government figures out how it can practice its own sovereignty. Otherwise, Israel will have to continue on policing Hezbollah, the Hezbollah militia in Lebanon. Now, the Iraqi militias are an interesting case because they are weaker of the three. They don't have as much punch and power as Hezbollah in Lebanon, and they do not dominate the government as much as Hezbollah does in Lebanon. And that's why we have seen some sort of what looks like a civil war, but it's not. The Iraqi military has been countering the militias, has been controlling the militias, and these militias in Iraq have attacked Iraqi military bases. So in Iraq, at least, the government is trying to play a role and is trying to step up, unlike the government in Lebanon. Whether the Iraqis manage to put a lid on these militias remains to be seen, but I wouldn't say that when compared to Hezbollah, I wouldn't say that the Iraqi militias are in a good position. And of course, you have to remember that the chief of Kataib Hezbollah, which is the most potent of the Iraqi militias, this guy was eliminated a few days ago. So these guys also are facing trouble. And unlike Hezbollah, they haven't fought wars. They don't have a lot of experience, and they're not as nearly well stocked in terms of rockets, missiles, and other kinds of ammunitions and weapons.
Right. And Jonathan, as I heard Hussein sort of negatively comparing the Lebanese government to the stance of the Iraqi government. But we have seen some positive signs. The Lebanese president, Joseph Aoun, for example, coming out and calling for talks with Israel. But Israel's been a little skeptical of that, arguing really what's the talk until for example, the Lebanese government, especially its army, is ready to take on Hezbollah. Do you agree with that, David? Or do you think Israel perhaps should be more proactive? It may be coming under, for example, pressure from the U.S., maybe some other international parties, to try to be more proactive, to enter a dialogue, even under fire, as it were, with the Lebanese government.
Yeah, we can see at the end of the day that the Israeli government is proactive and trying to kind of assemble or realize what will these talks lead to if they will sit on a face-to-face negotiation on the same table. That itself is a historic event that didn't happen since the 1980s. And I think this is a positive step that Israel should consider, because at the end of the day, alongside of military operation, there needs to be some sort of diplomatic connection. But I want to add on Hussein's incredible remarks at the end of the day. We need to look at the Lebanese government in this atmosphere. In the last year and a half, almost 2 years, this is the first ever, you can say, sovereign Lebanese government that ever acted in Lebanon since the 1970s. And that was basically because the fall of the Assad regime, that finally this connection where the Assad regime since the 70s were holding Lebanon hostage, deciding on its actions, deciding on its political future, and every decision that was taken by the Lebanese government was dictated by the Assad regime. So the Lebanese government is still trying somewhat to understand or figure out how they are able to kind of control their own sovereignty that finally is theirs. We've seen that in the last 15 months before this ceasefire was broken by Hezbollah on March 2nd, where at the end of the day, the Lebanese government tried to work, you can say, from the mind. They tried to reach out to Hezbollah, to say to Hezbollah, listen, you can continue on controlling Lebanese territory. You can continue on dragging Lebanon into wars that has nothing to do with any Lebanese cause. Because this is what happened on October 8th after Hezbollah joined Hamas on their attack on Israel on October 8th, 2023. And this is something that we need to understand at the end of the day, that the Lebanese government is also limited on that. And yes, I kind of agree that Israel and the US, by the way, are very skeptical on the capabilities of the Lebanese government to actually, or the Lebanese military and their own capabilities, because let's face it, the Lebanese military for the last 30, 40 years have been underfunded. The personnel in the Lebanese military are not well equipped and well trained to deal with this type of threat from Hezbollah, because at the end of the day, the only threat is not by the Hezbollah's missiles. It's only by the majority of the weapons that they hold in their own bases that at the end of the day, they might use against the Lebanese public. And one note regarding a civil war, I think we have a completely different case than the 1970s when the civil war emerged in Lebanon between different sects of religions, between different communities that also from the same religion against each other. This time, we have a majority of the Lebanese public, including the Sunni Muslim community, the Druze community, the Shia, almost half of the Shia community are against Hezbollah this time, and the Christian community in Lebanon. You have almost full majority of the Lebanese public and parliament that are acting and wanting to end Hezbollah's rule in Lebanon on behalf of the Islamic Republic. So they might be clashes, but at the end of the day, I think there's a huge step from this to a civil war. And we need to look at the end of the day, who's threatening in civil war in Lebanon? These are only Hezbollah's personnel who's threatening to emerge a civil war. Yet at the end of the day, the Lebanese public knows the reality, they know the truth, they know what is going on the ground. And I think the Lebanese government needs to step up and take action against Hezbollah as much as possible. We've heard reports from the last few days that the Lebanese government have held or arrested more than 50 personnel that are associated with Hezbollah that were on their way to fight on the southern border with Israel, with ammunition in their cars. Yet at the end of the day, these are small numbers. They need to act much more faster in order to kind of try and stop this war from dragging too long.
Right. And Hussein, to refocus on Iran itself, we're now in day 19 of the war. Look, every day, there's no question, more and more blows against the regime. But President Trump is coming under increasing political pressure domestically. We've had items related to that. Economic pressure due to the situation in the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. At a certain point, he may have to simply just declare we've achieved what we can achieve, at least in this stage of the war. What has to be done going forward beyond that for him to say declare victory but still, in a sense, keep the pressure up on a regime that we know has not, say, learned its lesson, and that is likely, just as it did after last June's war, look to immediately rebuild its military and potentially nuclear infrastructure?
Well, it looks to me that time is not on the side of the Iranian regime, including the issue of the Strait of Hormuz, because the Iranians suddenly discovered that they cannot shut down this international waterway because they will anger their own friends, and their friends, China mainly. Most of its oil passes through the strait. Then you have India, then you have other powers who are not going to sit back and watch the Iranians stop their energy shipments. So the Iranians discovered that shutting down this waterway doesn't really affect the oil that goes to Europe or to the United States. It affects the oil that goes to China. So now we are seeing some sort of the Iranians relaxing their chokehold on the strait. When this happens, their ability to pressure the price to go up and to negatively influence the world economy will certainly weaken. So this is why I'm saying time is not on their side. We also see that their stock is dwindling in terms of ballistic missiles and drones, and no one has the final number, but everyone seems to think that they're not well stocked to fight a long-term war. So the Iranians are mostly bluffing. Their statements are bluster, but we all know that they are reeling and they want an end to this. They have no idea how to end this. Now, on the side of President Trump, we know that the ultimate deadline would be 60 days. This is the time the Constitution gives the president to wage a military operation without having to go to Congress and get war authorization. So I think we're still far off from the April 27, April 28 deadline. But until then, I'm not sure how much the Iranians can really last. Facing
well,
these
let me
blows
just
from both
press you
Israel
on
and the
that.
US.
So what do you expect if they do reach a sort of breaking point from this regime? What is a realistic expectation? I mean, what would you think they'd be willing to concede, short of the regime toppling? We don't really see yet the street protest or the internal dissension. So what would you expect from those who are remaining alive from this regime willing to concede if they continue to take this pounding over the next month?
Look, this whole war is different from all the wars that preceded it. This is the first time that we see targeting goes to the street level, to the level of regular officers of the Pasdaran and the Basij. So we haven't dealt with something like this before, that the regime itself gets weakened. Will the people step up and take over? Maybe, but because everything is unprecedented, we have to also think that this might not end up like other wars in terms of a ceasefire. We might not have a date that everything stops. Maybe the military operation winds down, the Iranians stop firing without actually getting to a deal, and that's how it stops. So we're not sure how these things unfold. What we are sure of is that as time goes by, day by day, the Iranian regime is getting weaker to the point that they might get to a point that they can't even negotiate a ceasefire because, number one, they've boxed themselves in a position where they refuse any ceasefire, and number two, there's no one to talk ceasefire to. I mean, these guys, the president and the foreign minister, are really too weak to instruct anyone to do anything in Iran.
And let me ask you then, Jonathan, where do you think that leaves Israel at this stage, both either vis-a-vis Lebanon, but also in general vis-a-vis all of the proxies and the policy, Israel's policy for Iran going forward in the kind of situation that Hussein just described?
Yeah, as we're seeing, at the end of the day, Israel's mission or Israel's goal to minimize the threat towards Israeli citizens as much as possible. One of them is, of course, the Islamic Republic's nuclear aspirations. At the end of the day, also the second level is the ballistic missile level, where we can see, although we need to, say it clearly, they are able still to fire ballistic missiles towards Israel. And every few hours, we do have sirens, and we do have cluster missiles that are reaching Tel Aviv and civil and citizens areas inside of Israel. But at the end of the day, we've seen different story from the last June war, for example, the 12th-day war, where they have been able to fire much more rockets or ballistic missiles than they are capable right now. And at the end of the day is to make sure that all of Israel's citizens are safe. And I think it's also kind of Israel and the US are telling the entire international community this war is their war as well, because at the end of the day, the Islamic Republic of Iran have been funding terror cells all across the world for the last 40 plus years. They have been spending almost $17 billion a year to fund the Assad regime that fell just last year, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis, also Hamas, and the Islamic Jihad in Gaza, and so on and so on, and terror cells that we've just heard speaking in the Gulf countries. And at the end of the day, it's not just Israel and the US problem, it's the entire world's problem, and we need to put an end to it. The Iranian people deserve to live freely, and this is not just for the Iranian people, but it's for the entire world.
All right. Well, I think those are, hopefully the world will have learned at least some of that lesson, given the way this war is going, especially the way Iran has reacted. And I think those are good words to conclude this discussion with Jonathan El-Khoury and Hussein Abdul Hussein there at the FDD. Thank you for joining us on ILTV.
Thank you very much.
Now, we've talked quite a bit on this program analytically about the situation in the north, in Lebanon, and along Israel's northern border, but there is a human aspect of this as well. The residents of the north who have already endured over some 2.5 years of being under constant fire from Hezbollah, enjoyed maybe a brief period of respite, and unfortunately are having to deal with that again and seeing how they're coping with it. Let's speak to one of the residents there, Gidi Harari. He is a resident of Shar Shuv there in northern Israel. Gidi, thank you for joining us. Okay, I just want to check, Gidi, could you, I want to check that can you hear me and can you speak? All right, I don't.
Sorry, yes, I can hear you and speak.
Okay, now we hear you, Gidi. First of all, Gidi, let me just ask you, how was last night?
Last night it wasn't very much no like other nights. It was about 8 o'clock. I think we had a strike of 40 rockets, but it's not something that it's not similar to any other day that we have had here in this last war or in the previous war. Actually, we are used to it already.
I mean, that itself is a sad commentary, but you're used to it. But there must be some degree of frustration because perhaps there was some hope after the ceasefire in November that there would be some kind of period of calm. What are the feelings there? Not specific, in overall, other than coping with it, but having to find yourself in this situation again.
It depends, the frustration, it depends who are you talking and who are you asking about it, because most of us understood very well at the previous ceasefire that the story never ended. And the IDF didn't finish the job in Lebanon as we would like it to be. So we knew that we should expect that the war will be renewed somehow. We didn't know how, when and how it will happen, but me, myself, and other people here, we knew that it will come. We knew that the job wasn't done or wasn't finished. And of course, it's always something that you are not expecting it. And many people are frustrated, yes, because they say, how come we didn't finish it before? But actually, and I see it, most of the people came back home, and most of the people remained at home and not left the north. And we are expecting that this time we will finish this event either by disarming Hezbollah or achieving some kind of agreement, which be a real agreement that the Lebanese government will disarm Hezbollah or something else. But we cannot bear again to finish this event by some kind of agreement that doesn't finish somehow the war that we have in the north.
Right. Are you prepared for the possibility that, and then maybe you heard some of our analysts discussing this, that we could come to an end of the war with Iran, the current conflict in Iran, but the battle with Hezbollah will continue beyond that to achieve the kind of aims that you wish to achieve, which means, unfortunately, once again, it will be the residents of the north that will be bearing the brunt of basically trying to secure at least one key front of this country.
Sadly, I say that in this event, in this war, the North Front in Israel is only a side effect to the big war that is between Israel, the United States, and Iran. The best thing that we can hope for is that the regime, the Iranian regime, will fall, and there will come a new regime which will be much more liberal, and it will be very important for us because this will make Hezbollah even weaker than he is today, and it will be easier for the Lebanese regime to disarm Hezbollah. But if it will not happen this way, I believe that Israel will find herself again going on with this war and campaign against Hezbollah, while the Americans stopping the war in the Persian Gulf. And this will be this is not the best. It's not the best end game for us, but it's not up to us, because at the end of the day, at the minute that the Americans will get their interest in Iran, they will finish the war, and we will be stuck again here with Hezbollah, either to go on fighting or stop the fighting and going back before February 28th.
Right. Now, Giddy, beyond the military or strictly security aspect, when we have this kind of situation in the north, as we had for 2.5 years after October 7th and in many other instances before, part of the public discussion is whether residents in those northern communities, the real pioneers of Israel on the border or close to the border, are getting the kind of support they need and require from the government or from local authorities. Is that the case here? And if not, what do more you or they or your neighbors would like to see up there in the north?
Of course, we would like to see this war finishing as soon as possible. As I told you, achieving some kind of agreement that Hezbollah will disarm and will not be accessible to the south of Lebanon, and the Lebanese regime will take over Lebanon as expected of them. And also, we would like the Israeli administration to fulfill their promises to the locals here in the north to invest and renew the Galil and improve our life, our education, our health, everything, because the situation right now is not good. We didn't finish recovering the area from the last war, and we are already in the next one. And sadly, I have to say that the Israeli government is not accomplishing their promises to the public here.
Well, hopefully that will be taken care of. Gidi Harari, also a lecturer at the Amish Center, I should say. Thank you for joining us, and stay strong there in Israel's beautiful north.
We are strong.
I'd say you are. Stay strong. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for joining us. That ends this broadcast. Continue to follow us on our social media platforms or on app. There's a QR code. I'm Kalev Ben David, and stay tuned for all the latest developments here on ILTV.
Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Emily Schrader, and coming up in today's newscast, IDF eliminates senior Islamic Republic official Ali Larijani, as well as the head of the besieged forces. Ballistic missile debris hits Jerusalem's Old City, causing damage to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. President Trump unhappy with some U.S. allies over failure to support efforts to secure the Strait of Hormuz. The Army announced that it launched extensive simultaneous strikes against targets in both Tehran and Beirut. In the Iranian capital, the IDF says it's striking the infrastructure of the terror regime, while in Beirut, it's attacking Hezbollah targets. Starting with the north, where amid heavy incoming rocket and mortar fire on northern Israel, the IDF is intensifying its air and ground operations in Lebanon. ILTV's Devil Klein has the latest.
The IDF is continuing to target Hezbollah positions across the south and deeper into Lebanon, including several neighborhoods in Beirut. IDF ground forces are also maneuvering and advancing deeper into southern Lebanon. The army says it's hitting rocket launchers, command centers, and weapon sites as ground forces expand operations along the border. The escalation comes as Hezbollah continues and intensifies its rocket and drone attacks on northern Israeli communities. IDF Chief of Staff Eyal Zamir visited the Northern Command, approving plans for the next phase and saying strikes on Iran are impacting Hezbollah's capabilities in Lebanon. Zamir confirmed a targeted ground operation in southern Lebanon with more than 400 Hezbollah operatives killed and troops continuing raids on weapon sites. Israel says operations will continue until its northern communities are safe and secure. Defense Minister Israel Katz explained the operation.
צה"ל החל בתמרון קרקעי בלבנון כדי להסיר איומים ולהגן על תושבי הגליל והצפון. מאות אלפי תושבי דרום לבנון השיעים שהתפנו ומתפנים מבתיהם בדרום לבנון לביירות לא יחזרו לבתיהם דרומית למרחב הליטני עד שלא יובטח שלומם של תושבי הצפון.
Katz compared the ongoing operation in Lebanon to IDF maneuvers during the war in Gaza.
ראש הממשלה בנימין נתניהו ואני הנחינו את צה"ל לפעול ולהרוס את תשתיות הטרור בכפרי המג"ס סמוכי הגבול בלבנון כדי למנוע איומים ואת חזרת החיזבאללה למקום בדיוק כפי שהדבר נעשה מול החמאס בעזה באזורי רפיח, בית חנון ושטחים נרחבים שסוכלו וכפי שנעשה כיום מול מנהרות הטרור בעזה.
Two fronts, a multi-front war. and no sign the fighting is about to ease in either.
Turning to Iran, where overnight an IDF strike killed besieged paramilitary force commander Gholamreza Soleimani.